So we saw the Gemara had a question. There's a stira between Maseches Tomit and Maseches Midos. Where exactly is the lishka of the tloim, whether it's here or here? So the first answer of the Gemara was that it's a machlokes tanoim. Now on Daf Yud Zayin, the Gemara brings the second answer of Rav Ado Breder Rav Yitzchok, which he says that this lishka of the tloim was a long lishka, and a person that would walk from this side, it looked so the lishka of the tloim was a long lishka, not like it's in the picture, it was longer. So the person that comes from here, it looked to him like it's on this corner, and the person that comes from here, it looked to him like it's in the other corner. And the Gemara says, really, it was in this corner more than in the other one, because if you look at the circle, it says over here was the lishka of lechem aponim in the Mishnah of Midos, and the Gemara asked that if you go, it seems like it's not in the same place, and the answer was that the way it goes in Tamid is clockwise, and the way it goes in Midos is counterclockwise. Now, if the lishka of the tloim is here, so then according to everyone, the lishka of lechem aponim would be here. But if you would, what? It's in the Kodesh. Both of them are in the Kodesh. That's right. But if you would say any other explanation that it's really here, so then it wouldn't answer for the lishka of lechem aponim. Okay. The Gemara asks, according to the Tana that goes clockwise, the Tana of Tamid, but we know that all pniyos should be to the yamin, and we know from the Mizbeach that the yamin is going this way, counterclockwise, and the answer is that when you do avodah, you have to turn to the right, but when you just want to make a cheshbon where things are, you can go whichever way you want. Okay. The Gemara says now that we had a din that the Kohen Gadol can choose his chelik first and take his chelik first. The Gemara says, how does he do it? He can come into the Beis Hamikdash and say, I want to be makiv this oilo, I want to be makiv this mincha, or he can say if he wants to eat this chatos, this asham, he's able to eat it. Now the Gemara brings a machlokes between Chachamim and Rebbe. When it comes to the lechem aponim and the shtei alechem, at least in the lechem aponim, the Kohen Gadol, according to Chachamim, can take a bit less than half. And according to Rebbe, he takes a full half. And it says in the Reish of the Mishnah that he takes one chalo of the two chalois of Shavuos. So the Gemara says that seems to be like Rebbe. And then the middle says he gets either 4 or 5 chalos from the Lechem Aponim. It seems to be Rabbanon. And then it goes again, it says that according to Rebbe, he gets 5. So what's going on? It starts with Rebbe, then Chachamim, then again Rebbe. So Abaye says, no. The whole thing is Chachamim. The whole beginning of the Mishnah is Chachamim. And even Chachamim agreed that when it comes to the Shtei Alechem of Shavuos, we'll give him a full bread, even though it's a full half, and we're not going to cut a piece off and give him less than a shalom. It's not nice to give a Kohen Gadol. It's not derech eretz. The Gemara says to give a Kohen Gadol less than a full one. Now, according to Chachamim, why does it say 4 or 5? Sometimes 4, sometimes 5. So it goes like this. There's a machlokes. Altogether, there's 12 chalas of lechem aponim. There's a machlokes how we divide them. There's one opinion. The opinion says that we divide it 6 and 6. So according to the opinion that we divide 6 and 6, if the Kohen Gadol comes and he wants to take, he takes a little bit less than half, he would get 5. There's a different opinion that says that the way we do it is 7 and 5. Why 7? The mishmor that he's coming in to work today, and Shabbos they would shift mishmorais. So the new mishmor would have to close the doors. And for that, we gave them 2 chalas. So that's outside the count. And then each mishmor got 5 chalas to share. So then if the Kohen Gadol, according to this opinion, wants to take, he will get only 4 chalas. Now, according to Rebbe, he would get 5, because according to Rebbe, he gets half. That's how the Gemara explains. But Rava says no. The whole Mishnah is Shita Rebbe that says that he gets half. So why does it say that sometimes he gets 5 and sometimes he gets 4? Because Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yudo that 2 is out of the count. So we're only dealing with 10. And from this 10, he will get half, it's 5. Why 4? So the Gemara says it's very interesting. There's a special halacha when there's a chag, which is right next to, first before right next, the chag itself. All the mishmoros share equally all the regular korbanos. The tmidim, the musafim, the chalois, everything which is there in a regel, in a chag, in a holiday, they share equally. if there's a Shabbos which is right before the regel or right after the regel, so they also share equally because the Kohanim have to be there for that Shabbos. But if there's a day gap between the Shabbos and the Yom Tov, like we have over here on Shavuos, right? We're going to have Shabbos, then Sunday between, and then Shavuos will be Monday. So for that Shabbos, which is one day apart, the halacha is that we give 2 chalas to all the mishmarot which are not the ones which are supposed to work this Shabbos, and then we give to the mishmarot which are in the rest. So according to that, we'll come out that there's only 8 chalas to share, because 2 chalas goes to the mishmarot for closing the doors, 2 chalas goes to the rest of the mishmaros. So there's only 8 chalas left, and the Kohen Gadol will get half, which is 4. And that's how this Mishnah can work with Rebbe. But the problem is, the Gemara says that Rebbe comes at the end and he says, Lo ilam chomesh. So that doesn't fit with what you just explained beautifully. So it doesn't seem that the Reisha is also Rebbe. The Gemara says Kashya, valid Kashya. Okay, so now the Mishnah on Daf Yud Ches. The Gemara says the continuation, right? We have the Kohen Gadol in quarantine for the 7 days. We know where he is. And now they give him Zikenim Yezikne Bezdin, and they read every day. They read to him Achrei Mois. They teach him the halachos. He should realize what he needs to do. And they tell him, Ishi Kohen Gadol, and the honored Kohen Gadol, read it in your mouth. Maybe you forgot, or maybe you didn't learn. The Gemara says, maybe you forgot. We can understand, but the Kohen Gadol didn't learn. We know that the Kohen Gadol needs to be the biggest from all his brothers. He should be the strongest, the most handsome, the smartest, and the richest. And if he doesn't have money, so we tell the other Kohanim, everyone needs, if the Kohen Gadol has the other qualities but not money, so all the Kohanim will have to get together and give him money. So let's say there's 500,000 Kohanim. I would assume they would ask everyone to give $1,000, and then he would have $500 million. Then he would be the richest Kohen also. It wouldn't take much. Rebelli says that he thinks it's too much. Maybe they'll only ask for $100. Okay. But you'd like for 10,000, who knows? You can give it in payments. So that's what the Gemara says. Okay, so the Gemara asks, if the Kohen Gadol is the biggest in Chochmah, so how come he never learned? So the Gemara answered, in Mikdash Rishon, it was done properly, and the Kohen Gadol was the biggest in everything, but in Mikdash Sheni, it went with money. As we know, that Marta bat Baitos, which was a rich widow who married the Yoshua ben Gamlo, paid the king a lot of money to make her husband the Kohen Gadol. Okay. So now the Gemara, the Mishnah continues by saying, Erev Yom Kippurim, they would put the Kohen Gadol in the Shara Mizrach, and they would pass in front of him the different animals that he would have to deal with. And the Gemara says, Porim, Elim, and Kvasim. So the Braisa adds that also they would pass in front of him the Seirim. So why the Mishnah doesn't mention Seirim? Because Seirim come for the Aveiros, for Chet. And the Kohen Gadol will feel bad to see the Seirim, so that's why we don't show him Seirim. But the Gemara asks that the par also is a par chatos. The Gemara says, yeah, but the par chatos is for the Kohen Gadol and his family, and he knows what's going on between his family and the Kohanim, and he's machzir everyone b'tshuva. So, but by the Jewish nation, he doesn't know. Okay. The Gemara gives a good advice if you have a relative which is working for the income tax company. So don't make sure he doesn't see you, because you can get in trouble. That's the Kohen Gadol. He knows what's going on in the Kohanim. The Gemara learns it from it. We'll leave it for tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. All the 7 days that... What? No, B'ezrat Hashem. The belly and tomorrow and Shir, he'll say it. Of course you're allowed to learn. So all 7 days, they allowed him to eat whatever he wanted, but on Erev Yom Kippur, they didn't allow him to eat a lot because Michael would bring the Shena, and we're worried that he's going to fall asleep. He may become Tomei in his sleep, so therefore, we'll see. They'll keep him up the whole night. The Gemara says there's different things that we don't allow him to eat because these things cause tumah. The Gemara says that also by Azav, we're even more machmir, and we don't allow him to eat even more things because we don't want it to lead to tumah. Oh, by the way, what's the simon for Yud Ches? We're doing Yud Ches now? Oh, okay. No, Chagvei. That's simon. Okay. The Gemara says other advices for people that go to be guests shouldn't eat certain things, so they shouldn't come to Tumah. And also, the Gemara brings amazing, fascinating things about Rav and Rav Nachman, that when they went to certain places, they asked who wants to be their wife for that day. And the Gemara asked, but a person can't marry wives in 2 different places because maybe his son and his daughter will marry each other. The Gemara says it's not a problem by these big chachamim. Everyone knows that it's their kids. The Gemara asked that by Tavu Alei she needs Sheva Nekim. The Gemara says they would announce before, or they will only miyached them to have a pas besalo. They weren't actually with them. Okay, the next step. I'm saying tomorrow B'ezrat Hashem and Shir, you'll understand much more what just happened over here. It's good to keep you tuned. Okay, so the Mishnah says like this: the Zikne Beis Din gave him to Zikne Kiuno. They took him to Beis Avtinas. They made him swear that he will do it the way they told him and not like a tzeduki. And then they will both go and cry. The Gemara will explain why they're crying. If he would be a chacham, he would give it rosh. Otherwise, other chachamim would be darshaning in front of him. If he knows how to read, he would read. Otherwise, they would read in front of him. Yoiv Ezra, Divrei Yomim, which are interesting. Schaya ben Kvuto says many times I read in front of him in Daniel, which is also very interesting. Basically, we're trying to keep the Kohen Gadol up. The Gemara will see in the Gemara more things that they did to keep the Kohen, and also the next Mishnah to keep the Kohen Gadol up. Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem. So we did yesterday. We did Daf Hey. We got the Daf Vav in the two dots. Mafrishin Kohen Gadol. What's the siman for Daf Vav? V'yachgol. Okay, it's talking about the belts, the beginning of the Daf. So the siman is V'yachgol. And the siman, and the next siman is V'boyel Nido, which is the next topic. Okay, the Gemara says, by Mafrishin Kohen Gadol, why do we take him out of his house? Besides the reasons that we sought to take him out of his house, what you have to understand why to take him away from his wife. So the Gemara says, because maybe his wife was going to be found a Sofek Nido afterwards. So the Gemara says there's 3 stages. If it's immediately, she checks out immediately and she finds herself Tomei, so then he's also for sure Tomei. If she finds it after the amount of time to get off the bed and check, then everyone agrees the Sofek Tomei. And if it takes after that, so then only according to Rabbi Akiva, they're Sofek Tomei, and according to, meaning they're Tomei mi Sofek, and according to Chachamim, they're not Tomei. The Gemara says from here we see that Boyel Nido doesn't have the din of a Nido to be Toivel at night. A Nido and a Yoledes are Toivel at night, but Boyel Nido has the din like all the rest of the Tmeim, and he's Toivel in the day, because otherwise we would have to be Mafrish the Kohen Gadol a little bit before. And the Gemara wanted to say that there's another opinion, but the Gemara pushed it away because it says Mefayrosh that Boyel Nido is Toivel in the day. The Gemara says, if you're worried that he's going to get tummy from his wife, why aren't you worried that someone is going to drop dead in his lishka? Why don't we keep him away from people for the 7 days? And the Gemara answers 2 answers. Either that it's not common, so we're not worried about it, or the Tuma Hutra Betzibul. Tuma of the mace is Hutra Betzibul, so therefore even if it will happen, it's not a problem. The Gemara says, brings the Machlokes, according to Rav Nachman it's Hutra, and according to Rav Sheshes it's Dechuyo. So the Gemara explains what does it mean. If all the Kohanim are Tmeim, according to everyone, of course, they can work Betuma, Korban Tzibul, that's what it means that they're allowed to do, that's Tchuya. When does the difference between Hutra and Dechuya? Is when the Beis Av that need to work today are Tomei, but there's different Batei Av which are Tol. Do we allow the Beis Av that's supposed to work today to work, or we tell them bring different Kohanim? So that will be the Machlokes. There's another opinion that even if in the same Beis Av there's Tmeim and Tehorim, Rav Nachman says, I allow the Tmeim to work because that's their day to work. Because Rav Nachman, okay, that's Tuma Hutra Betzibul. The Gemara says that Rav Nachman agrees to a few places. One place is when the Shiraim are meant to be eaten. So when the Shiraim are meant to be eaten, we're in Daf Zayin. Let's see what's the siman for Daf Zayin. Zman. Okay? Something which is Kavuy al Zman, as we're going to see. Okay, so let's see. And Daf. Okay, so the Rav Nachman is moided that if the Shiraim is La'achilo, like we see by Korban O'Emer, by the Korban O'Emer it says like this. If a Kohen was Makriv Minchas O'Emer, and then it became Tome in his hand, if there's a replacement, he should ask for a replacement. And if not, we tell him, be Pikeach and Shtoik, why make other people sad? It's anyways, it's Tome, just do it the way it is. So another place that Rav Nachman is moide, if we have a korban of a yochid, which is kavu al ozman, right? That's the zman for daf zayin. A korban of a yochid, which is kavu al ozman. like the ayil of a haroin, or if you have a korban of a tzibur, like a par of avodah zarah, that it's not kavuas man, but it is tzibur. So in these three things, Rav Nachman agrees that we try to make them betaharo. Okay, the Gemara brings that if Adam shenitma and he was zoyreket, if he did it b'shoigeg, it's hutzo. If he did it b'mezid, it's lo hutzo. But the lo hutzo doesn't mean he needs to bring a new korban, because that will be chulin ba'azorah, because midoraisa it's hutzo. It just means that you're not allowed to eat the food, and Rav Nachman will say that that's talking about a korban yachid. Because korban tzibur, even lekatchila, you can go ahead and do it betuma. Another brayso that we had, that tzitzis meratze, ben al yochid, ben al tzibur, oines, shoigeg, mezid, rotzoin, dam, bosol, chelev, all these things, according to Rav Nachman by tzibur, it doesn't mean that the tzitzis meratze, it just speaks out that this is also kosher, or a korban tzibur, which is not kavuas man, as we saw before. Okay, it says that the tzitz, now we're going to speak a little bit about the tzitz of a haroin. It says the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol carries the oven HaKodashim, and it takes the oven of the Kodashim, it makes them kosher. So which oven does it take away? It can't be thinking about chutz lizmanoi or chutz limkoimoi, eat it after time or out of place, because these things, it says in the Torah that it doesn't work. So it goes on Tuma, and it says the word hutro betzibur. So it seems to be like Rav Nachman, that it's hutro betzibur. So Rav Sheshes says, you're right. Over here it says that it's hutro betzibur, but I found a different place that it says tchuya, which is the machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda, whether the tzitzis meratze only when it's in the metzach of a haroin, or even if it's not in his metzach. And Rabbi Shimon tells Rabbi Yehuda, according to you, that it's meratze only when it's on his metzach. What will you do on Yom Kippur? On Yom Kippur, we know, when the Kohen Gadol goes inside, he doesn't carry the tzitz on himself. And Rabbi Yehuda tells him, what do you want from Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur, it's all avodas tzibur. In avodas tzibur, tuma hutro betzibur. So you see that Rabbi Shimon holds that tuma is not hutro betzibur. Okay, so you see that there's a machlokes tanoim whether tuma is hutro or the chuya. So we found out that this machlokes amoyroim is really a machlokes tanoim. Now Abaye goes to explain the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon about the tzitz. So he says they only argue if the tzitz is whole, but if the tzitz broke, according to everyone, it's possible because it has to be al metzach. It has to be fit to be on the metzach of the Kohen Gadol. Otherwise, it's possible. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, he learns the word tomid, which says over there, not that it's tomid meratze, just that he always has to think about it. And from that, he learns the tefillin. If a tzitz, which has only one times Hashem's name, the Kohen Gadol can never stop thinking about it, that he has the tzitz on him. So for sure, if a person has tefillin on, he can never forget about it. So you always have to be memashmish them. If you're in davening, so we assume you don't forget about it in davening, but if a person is one of these people that wear the tefillin all day, he has to keep touching them. I don't know how often, but to make sure that he doesn't forget about them. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, okay. So, what do we do? Daf Vav and Daf Zayin. Okay, wow, Daf Ches also? Okay, so the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says maybe it's a machlokes whether this tuma hutro betzibur or the chuya betzibur is the what? Oh, what's the siman for Daf Ches? The siman for Daf Ches is chatos and Amud Beis is chalo. Okay, so the Gemara says maybe the machlokes is by this machlokes tanoim of how many azois would the kohen which goes into the Beis Hamikdash, the Kodesh HaKodashim on Yom Kippur, and the kohen that burns the parah. We saw they need to get azois, but how many azois do they need to get? According to Rabbi Meir, they need to get, both of them need to get azor every single day of the 7, besides the day that they don't, that we'll see in Amud Beis, but every single day of the 7. And according to Rabbi Yosi, only Shlishi v'Shvi. So the Gemara suggests that what's the machlokes between them? The machlokes between them is whether tumo dechuya betzibur, so therefore we need to make sure as much as possible to make him tor on the right time. And according to Rabbi Yosi, we don't need to make sure that we do it on the right time because tumo anyways is hutro betzibur. But the Gemara says that doesn't fit because if tumo is mutor betzibur, so why do you give him hazor shlishi v'shvi altogether? There's no need for hazor. Is a shlishi v'shvi? And the answer is that you're right. Everyone holds that tumo is dechuya. So obviously the machlokes is something else. The Gemara wanted to suggest that the machlokes is whether tvilo bismano is mitzvah or not. And the hazor, the Gemara assumed is the same as tvilo. If tvilo bismano is a mitzvah, so you have to do every day to make sure that you give the hazor on the right day. But the Gemara says that even Rabbi Yosi holds the Tvila Bizmano is a mitzvah. So the machlekes is not whether the Tvila is a mitzvah, just do you learn the Hazah from the Tvila or not? The Hazah that you do, the Hazah, does it need to be in the right day or the Hazah can be any day? That's the machlekes. The Gemara says, according to Rabbi Chanina Sgana Kohanim, he's a third opinion. He says the Kohen that goes into the Kodesh HaKodoshim needs Hazah only Shlishi v'Shvi. But the Kohen that does the Poro needs every day. So does he learn from Tvila or he doesn't learn from Tvila? The Gemara says obviously he doesn't learn from Tvila and therefore Shlishi v'Shvi is enough. Just by Kohen HaSof Saporo, we do it as a Milo Be'almo like we do other Milos by Kohen HaSof Saporo since we have the Skula of Tvul Yoim. The Gemara before mentioned that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yosi and Chachamim. If a person has a Shem name written on him and he has a Tvila of Mitzvah, so according to Chachamim, you should put a gemi on it and then go to be toivel. According to everyone, you should put a gemi. But what happens if he doesn't have gemi at hand? Can you do the tvila or not? And Chachamim say no, wait for a gemi. Rabbi Yosi says you could go and be toivel kedarko, just don't rub it off. And the reason of Rabbi Yosi, what? Yeah, if he doesn't have a gemi, if he has a gemi, so obviously you should put the gemi. That's a Mefosh Gemara on Shabbos. The Gemara doesn't speak it out over here. The Gemara speaks it out on Shabbos. Of course, according to Rabbi Yosi, also you should put the gemi. Just if he doesn't have a gemi, so we allow him to be toivel because tvila bizmano is mitzvah. Okay. The Gemara brings that there's a machlokes. Also, right, we saw the Gemara says the difference between, again, the Gemara says the difference between Kohen HaSof Sapot, the Kohen which is on Yom Kippur, the Kohen which goes on Yom Kippur, his prisha is for Kedusha, to go to Machne Shechino, and his brothers Kohanim are allowed to touch him, and the prisha of the Kohen HaSof Sapot is the Taharo, and his brother Kohanim can't touch him. So the Gemara says that will be the only difference according to Rabbi Meir or according to Rabbi Yosi, because according to Rabbi Chanina Sgana Kohanim, there's also a difference in the amount of Hazois they'll get. Okay. The Gemara speaks out the first day is maybe the third day for his tumah, the second is maybe the third, and the third is maybe the third. But the fourth is not the third day to his tumah anymore because he's in the Meis HaMikdash already for 3 days. So it can't be the third, and it can't also be the seventh. Now, the 5th, 6th, and 7th day can be the 7th. If the first was the third, so the 5th is the 7th. So the Gemara says, so why do we give him Azor and Revi? The Gemara says, you're right. There's no Azor and Revi, and there's also no Azor on Shabbos because we know that Azor is Shvus, but it's not Doiche Shabbos. So therefore, if we're doing a Kohen HaSoref Saporo, so then we'll make sure to put him away on Wednesday, that the 4th day will fall on Shabbos. So then we won't lose another day of Azor. But by Yom Kippur, we have no choice. Yom Kippur is not up to us. So whenever the month starts, 10 days later, it's Yom Kippur. So we're going to be Mafrishim at the 3rd of Tishrei, and we'll skip the 4th day and the Shabbos if needed. Okay. Shkoyach.